Good morning. Um, Being back here in this camper all these, well, for now, for a year and a half, I've had a lot of time, especially in the winter, when you can't really do very much. I've had a lot of time to ponder my situation and to ponder life in general, and to ponder certain things that have been themes in my life, at least, and that have been recurring things that I've had to deal with, and to ponder really who I am and who I am in relation to others, and who others are in relation to me, too. And I've come to some conclusions about a few things, and I feel like I may be a little smarter now than I was a couple years ago. Pardon me, I think the fumes from the heater are getting to me, but I can see my breath in here, so I kind of need to have the heater on, but yeah, it's bothering me anyway. But here's the thing. One of the things I've had a lot of time to ponder is who I am in relation to women and who women are in relation to me. And especially the situation I got into last spring and summer, it's really made me think about a lot of things. And because the woman that I got mixed up with, in a way, I mean, we weren't together as a couple, really. I kind of thought it would go that way, but it didn't. And I think that it had some potential to go that way in the beginning, but I think that went away fairly quickly. But this woman that I was interested in, she actually has a lot of the characteristics of women that really got me thinking about my history with women and how things are between myself and women. This woman was really pretty, exceptionally pretty woman. And, had a lot of the feminine characteristics that I appreciate. But she also had a lot of the feminine characteristics that have gotten me in trouble over the years, and that I found are really common with women. And one of the things that I noticed about her, well, there's a few things. The things that really caused issues between us, in terms of her characteristics, and I'm not saying there were obviously things that caused issues between us in terms of my characteristics too, but in terms of her characteristics, um, the tendency to not accept accountability no matter what role she plays in a thing. That's something I've noticed that is common with women, and it was a thing with her. Um, Also, there was a lot of gaslighting on her part, which again is common, I find, with women, and that goes back to the tendency not to accept any accountability and to avoid accountability. Um, I noticed that. Also, she has a tendency to want to dominate men. And of course, that goes against our nature to be dominated. And I've noticed that with a lot of women in modern times, that women have a tendency to want to dominate men. And the problem with that is it goes against as men, it goes against our natural tendency to be dominant, for one thing, and also not to want to be dominated. Like when you see two men fighting in a parking lot, and they're out there just hammering away on each other, they're really trying to hurt each other. Oftentimes, in fact, I would say all the time, the reason for that is that one man has tried in one way or another to dominate the other man. And that's created conflict because now the man who's been on the receiving end of the domination, he feels he has to prove himself. He has to let this guy know, you're not going to dominate me. I'm no milksop, you're not going to dominate me. I'm a man just like you are. And for the man who's trying to do the dominating, he has to let this guy know, who he's fighting with, no, you're lesser than me. You're not a man like I am, you're a lesser man. And I'm going to put you in your place so that you understand that you have to let me dominate you. And that's why you get these fights where men end up really seriously hurting each other. And I know when I was young, I had a lot of men around me who thought I was weak and tried to dominate me, and then I got into fights, and Sometimes I lost, sometimes I won. I was actually surprised. I won a few fights that I didn't really think I would win going into them. But I also got my clock cleaned. There were lots of times I got beat up real bad. And the other guy I was fighting against didn't have much injury at all to him, but I was really beaten up. So that also happened. But like I say, there were a few times where I won fights that I honestly didn't think I was going to win. I was as surprised as anybody by it, you know. But that all came down to domination and to the fact that men have a tendency to want to dominate other people, including other men. Now, what I found is, just from being an outsider, because I haven't really been allowed to have relationships with women because I've been universally rejected, but because I've been on the outside looking in for so long, I've observed some things. And what I find is, nowadays, because traditional roles are gone, and so there's a lot of things up in the air, and women are asserting themselves more, and that's not always a bad thing. You know, in some respects, women should assert themselves more. But what happens is, women now, I notice they get into these relationships with men where they try to dominate the man. And of course, that goes against, for most of us, that goes against our nature, so we push back against it. And then you end up with continuous conflict. You know, the man and the woman are always locking horns. And oftentimes that conflict becomes violent. It even becomes physical at times. and then, you know, so relationships like that tend not to last. But then if a woman gets with a man who will allow her to dominate him, she won't respect him, because that goes against a woman's nature. A woman won't respect a man who she sees as weak. And so what happens is, and that goes back to the traditional roles, because traditionally a man was a protector. That was one of his roles, so obviously a weak man isn't going to be much of a protector. So that wiring is still there in the female brain. So the wiring in the male brain to be dominant is still there, and the wiring in the female brain to actually want a dominant man is there. But then we're being told we're not to be dominant as men, and women are being told you're not to want a dominant man. And so women try to dominate men. That doesn't work. Either way, it doesn't work, because either the man's going to push back and there's going to be constant conflict and drama, or the man's going to allow it. He's going to willingly be dominated by the woman, and then she's not going to respect him. She's going to have contempt for him. And she's probably going to leave him for a man who she can't dominate. And then she's going to fall into that cycle of continuous drama and conflict and violence and all that. And I've noticed that anyway, that's what's happening between men and women these days. And that's sort of the situation I fell into with that woman this past spring and summer. She tried to dominate me. I pushed back, and then she accused me of abusing her, which I hadn't done. I hadn't abused her. I think I have it in me to abuse a woman. I'm not saying that I couldn't have abused her. I'm only saying that I didn't, you know. I think if the relationship had progressed, at some point I probably would have abused her, because my pushing back against her and her escalating things and so on, it would have ended up leading to me actually abusing her. I think that would have happened. So it's probably a blessing, really, that relationship didn't come to fruition, because it wouldn't have been any good for either one of us. But what I've noticed is, about men and about women too, is a lot of the time we really don't like each other very much. We like the outer packaging. Like for me, there are attributes of a woman that I really like, and most of them, though, are very superficial. You know, I like nice hair, I like a pretty face, I like a feminine voice, and I like other attributes of a female that obviously I can't go into graphic detail here, but there's other things that I like about a female too, things that females have that males don't have. And I think women are the same way. I think women like a rugged face, and they like facial hair, and they like a deep voice and muscles. And, you know, they like other attributes of a man, which, again, I can't get into here, but you know what I'm talking about. And certain things that men have that women don't have. but they don't really like men, you know? And that's the thing. And I mean, that's how I am. I'm like that little boy you see in the grocery store browbeating his mom to buy him a box of cereal because he thinks that the graphics on the box are really cool. And she gives in, and she buys it for him. And the next morning, she pours him a big bowl of it and puts it down in front of him. And he starts to eat it. And then he says, "Oh, what's this?" And she says, "That's that cereal you wanted." "Oh, I don't like it. It's awful. I don't like it. Bring the box over here and I'll look at the box because the box is cool, but I don't like the cereal," you know? And that's, I think, how I am with women. I like the packaging, but I don't really like the woman. And I think there's a lot of women who are like that with men, too. They like the packaging, but they don't like the man. And that's why we're having so much conflict. And now that we don't have traditional roles anymore, that society isn't telling us, well, okay, this is your place and this is your place. Everything's up in the air. So you take what's already there, which is a certain amount of animosity that we have toward each other, whether we admit it or not, it is there. And then you add to it all the confusion, and we end up in a situation where everybody's just running around trying to fit wherever they think they might fit, and then it doesn't work out. You know? Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on it. Um, like I say, for me, I find that a lot of the time I've noticed this about women is they'll rewrite history so that they're the victim no matter what role they played in a situation. And for me, I don't like that. And I find it hard to deal with people who are erratic in their behavior. Like somebody who can just fly into a blind rage all of a sudden, and I don't understand why. I don't deal with that very well. I can deal with somebody who flies into a rage if I understand it. But I find a lot of the time with women, a woman will be mad and I won't know why. I just won't understand it and stuff. And I mean, like I say, I'm sure men have a lot of characteristics that really bother women. And I hear women complain about men a lot, so I know we do. And it used to be that we accepted these things about each other and we learned to work around them for the greater good. But we don't have to do that anymore, and so it's coming out in conflict and in drama and in heartache and heartbreak and hurt feelings and in a lack of compassion and a lack of understanding, which I'm guilty of. But like I say, I've known a lot of women who are also guilty of that. And I've known a lot of other men who were guilty of it too. It's really an exceptional thing now that a man and a woman can get together and really make it work. And those who do, they work hard at it. There's no doubt in my mind that they work really hard at it. And respect to them for doing it too. I have a great deal of respect for a man who's able to deal with a woman and to treat her properly and to treat her right and still be the man in the situation. And I have a lot of respect for a woman who can deal with a man and treat him properly and treat him right and be the woman in the situation. But, but basically,